Hello and welcome back to the deep dive. I'm going to be honest with you right out of the gate today. I have been dreading this topic.
Oh, that's not a great start.
No, it's not. Not because it isn't important, probably one of the most practical, high-stakes things we could possibly talk about,
Yeah.
but because it brings up so much, let's call it existential dread.
Existential dread about a resume.
It is. We are talking about the resume. The blank page, the blinking cursor, the absolute nightmare of trying to summarize your entire life, your worth, your 40-plus hours a week for the last decade onto a single sheet of paper.
Okay, I see it.
It feels like a test you didn't study for, even though you lived the material.
It is a universal nightmare.
Yeah.
I don't think I've met a single professional from, entry level to C-suite who actually enjoys the process.
Right.
And usually that feeling comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of what the task actually is.
Yeah.
We tend to think of it as a creative writing assignment.
Yes. Once upon a time, I was a junior analyst.
Exactly. And you're just paralyzed.
You are. You feel like you have to spin this magical narrative out of thin air. You're trying to be humble, but also brag. You're trying to be concise, but also detailed. It's impossible.
It feels impossible.
But today, we are flipping the script completely. We are looking at a set of source materials that argue that writing a resume isn't about writing at all. It is about engineering.
Right. The source we are diving into today is specifically focused on the executive summary of Chapter 3 from Engineering the High-Impact Career Resume. And if there's one thing I want everyone to take away from this conversation right at the top, it is this concept of the 50% rule.
The 50% rule. Okay, let's unpack this immediately because that sounds like a lifeline for anyone stuck on that blank page.
It is. The source material states it really clearly. Preparation and structured data collection determine about 50% of a resume's success.
50%.
Half. So if you are sitting there struggling to write, staring at that cursor, it's not because you're a bad writer. It is likely because you haven't done the engineering work yet. You are trying to build the house before you've even ordered the lumber.
That is such a relief to hear. I mean, genuinely. So the struggle isn't a lack of talent, it's a lack of data.
Precisely. This chapter treats the resume not as a creative memoir, but as a data-driven career audit.
I love that. A career audit. It sounds so much more manageable, almost clinical compared to, please summarize your entire existence.
It's much more manageable, and frankly, it's just more effective.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We want to help you, the listener, get a great job. But we want to do it by taking the stress out of that blank page panic and replacing it with a logical, step-by-step process. We're going to show you how to engineer this thing.
And I'll add a promise to that mission. This process, if you really follow what the source material lays out, it doesn't just make a better document. It builds a clearer professional identity.
Really? How so?
It gives you a roadmap for your own growth.
Yeah.
So even if you aren't sending the resume out tomorrow, this process helps you understand your own career value. It tells you where you are and where you could go.
That is a huge promise. Hopeful and truthful. That's what we're aiming for.
So let's get into the gears of this machine. Section 1 of our discussion is all about a principle that, it usually applies to computer science, but the author applies it to your career history. Garbage in, garbage out.
Classic concept.
Right. So in the context of coding, if you feed bad data into a program, you get bad results no matter how beautiful the code is. How does this apply to the resume?
Well, the source material is very blunt here. It says the quality of the final resume is entirely dependent on the quality, relevance, and depth of the information collected before you even think about writing.
Okay. But I feel like most people think they know what they did at their jobs. Like, I showed up, I did the marketing reports, I went home. Isn't that the input?
And that, unfortunately, is the garbage in part.
Oh.
That is shallow input. If that is all you have in your head, then what comes out on the page is going to be generic, responsible for marketing reports. It's weak because the input was weak. I see. So the mistake, and I'm definitely guilty of this, is trying to do two things at once. We try to remember what we did and make it sound fancy at the exact same time.
Exactly. The expert analysis here is that most people try to write and recall simultaneously. And that's a massive cognitive load. You're trying to remember a project from 3 years ago while also worrying about whether you should use the word spearheaded or managed, and also worrying about font size and margins. It's way too much for the brain to handle effectively. So the source suggests a complete mental shift. You need to separate gathering from writing.
So step 1 involves zero writing of the actual document.
Correct. It is a comprehensive data gathering mission. Resi writing, according to Chapter 3, is actually introspection, analysis, and strategic positioning. The writing part is just the final assembly.
You're just putting the pieces together at the end?
That's it.
The source mentions something interesting here about volume. It says you need to collect far more information than you will actually use. That seems counterintuitive. We're always told resumes should be short, concise, 1 or 2 pages. Why are we gathering mountains of data?
This is where the engineering mindset really kicks in. Think of it like a film director shooting a movie. They might shoot 100 hours of footage to get a 2-hour film.
Right.
Why? Because you need options. You need to be able to select the absolute best moments that tell the story. If you only shoot exactly what you think needs to be on the page, if you only remember 3 things, you have no flexibility. You're stuck with whatever popped into your head first.
That's a great analogy. So if I have a database of 50 things I achieved, I can pick the top 5 that really matter to this specific employer.
Precisely. And the benefits of this excess data go way beyond just the resume. The source highlights that this extra material strengthens your interview answers.
How does it help the interview?
Well, imagine you're in the hot seat and they ask a surprising question, like, tell me about a time you failed. If you've only prepped the bullet points on your resume, you might freeze up.
Totally.
But if you have this mental database, this B-roll footage of your career, you can draw from that. It also clarifies your personal branding because you start to see patterns in your career you might have missed before. And it defines your career strategy.
Because you can see what you've actually been doing versus what you thought you were doing.
Exactly. You might realize, wow, I have a lot of data points about crisis management, even though my title is sales manager. That changes how you sell yourself, you know.
I want to dig into the practical side of this gathering because I can hear a listener saying, I can't even remember what I had for lunch yesterday. How am I supposed to remember what I did 5 years ago?
That is a very real problem. Memory is fallible. And that's why the resume questionnaire framework, which we'll get to, is so helpful. It triggers memories. But here is a tip that isn't explicitly in the summary, but is implied by the data gathering ethos. Go back to your old performance reviews.
Oh, the dreaded annual review.
Yes, but they are gold mines for resumes. Your boss probably wrote down things you did that you have completely forgotten, successfully launched the Q3 initiative, helped train the new intern, grab those documents. Also, look at your old calendar.
Or calendar.
Yes. If you look at your calendar from 3 years ago, you'll see meetings, Project X kickoff, crisis meeting for client Y. Those calendar entries are clues. They remind you of the challenges and actions you took.
That is such a practical tip. It's like digital archaeology. You're digging through your own digital footprint to find the artifacts of your work.
Exactly. And don't forget your sent folder in your email. If you search for thank you or congratulations or project complete, you will find trails of your accomplishments.
I love that. So the data gathering isn't just staring at the ceiling thinking hard. It's active research.
It's active research. You are investigating yourself.
Okay, so we've accepted the garbage in, garbage out principle. We are going to gather a ton of data. We aren't filtering yet. We are just collecting. But eventually we do need to filter. We can't send a 20-page document.
No, absolutely not. That would be a disaster.
So that brings us to section 2, the filter. The source calls this Target Job Deconstruction, or TJD. What is TJD?
This is a critical concept.
Yeah.
PJD is the lens through which you filter all that data you just collected. The definition is simple, but really profound. You analyze your past roles specifically through the lens of what the future employer wants.
Okay, future back. I like that terminology.
It's a complete reversal of how most people write resumes. Most people write history forward.
Yeah.
They say, I did this, then I did this, then I did this. It's autobiographical.
Right, it's my story.
The TJD approach asks you to look at the job description you are targeting, the future role, and deconstruct it.
Yeah.
What problems do they have? What skills are they desperate for?
And then you go back to your pile of data and find the evidence that matches that.
Correct. You aren't just documenting what you did. You are extracting evidence.
Evidence of what, specifically?
Well, the source details 3 things the evidence must prove. 1, you can solve the employer's problems. 2, you meet the role's specific deliverables. And 3, you match their language and priorities.
That point about language is huge. Every industry, even every company, has its own dialect.
They do. And if you are describing your work using the jargon of your old company, you are creating friction for the reader. If you use the language of the new company, the language found in their job posting, you are signaling, I am one of you.
It's psychological.
It is, but it's also mechanical. we have to talk about the dual audience.
Right, the robots and the humans.
Exactly.
Mm.
TJD matters for the mechanics of hiring. First, you have the applicant tracking systems, or ATS. These are the software programs that scan resumes before a human ever sees them.
The gatekeepers.
The gatekeepers.
Right.
And they operate on keyword alignment. If the job description asks for project management and you wrote team coordination, the ATS might not rank you as highly. TJD ensure you are using the keywords that the system is programmed to find.
So you're literally taking the words from their wish list and making sure they appear in your history. Assuming you actually did the work, of course.
Always assuming you did the work. We are engineering, not fabricating. But it's also for the human reviewers. When a recruiter looks at a resume, they spend maybe 6 seconds on the first scan.
6 seconds. That is brutal. It feels insulting considering how long we spend writing it.
It is efficient. And in those 6 seconds, they're looking for relevance. TJD ensures that the first things they see are the things they care about.
I really like the analogy that came up in our prep notes here. It's like mining, the data gathering phase that's excavating the earth. You dig up tons of dirt and rock, but TJD is the sieve.
Exactly.
It's the pan you use to wash away the dirt so only the gold nuggets remain.
That is the perfect visualization. You need the dirt, the context, the raw info, but you never show the dirt to the buyer. You only show the gold.
I want to circle back to something we touched on, the feature back approach. I feel like we breezed past it, but it's such a radical shift for people. Can we dig a bit deeper into why that is so hard for people to do mentally?
I think it's hard because it requires checking your ego at the door.
Mm.
When we write about our lives, we are the protagonist. We want to talk about what we are proud of.
Of course. I worked so hard on that filing project.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the future back approach, the TJD doesn't care what you're proud of. It cares about what the buyer wants to buy.
That's harsh, but true. It's a transaction.
It is. Think of it like selling a house. You might love the bright purple wall in the living room because you and your friends painted it during a fun weekend. That's a great memory.
Right.
But the buyer walks in and sees work I have to redo. TJD is about neutralizing the personal attachment and looking at the asset, your career, objectively.
So, practically speaking, how does someone do a TJD? Do they literally print out a job description?
I would. Absolutely. Print it out. Get a highlighter. Highlight every key noun and verb. Manage cross-functional teams. Highlight. Utilize Python for data analysis. Highlight. Stakeholder management. Highlight. Those highlighted phrases are your blueprint.
And then you look at your inventory and say, do I have a match for cross-functional teams?
Exactly. And if you do, you write a bullet point that specifically uses that phrase. Led cross-functional teams of 10 people. You are mirroring their wish list back to them.
What if you have a match, but it's not exact? Like they want stakeholder management, but you've only ever managed, say, a chaotic group of volunteers.
That is where the engineering mindset gets creative, but stays truthful. Managing volunteers is stakeholder management.
That's true.
In fact, it's often harder than managing employees because you can't fire them. So you would write something like, provided stakeholder management for a volunteer force of 50, ensuring alignment on project goals despite 0 financial incentives.
Oh, that is good. You took a weakness, volunteers, and turned it into a strength, persuasion without authority, while using their keyword.
Exactly. That is the art of the translation. You aren't lying. You are translating your experience into their language.
Okay, so we have the philosophy, garbage in, garbage out, and we have the filter, TJD. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of the collection itself. Section 3 is about the inventory.
Yes, the resume questionnaire framework.
The source describes this essentially as building a career database. It lists a bunch of must-have categories, and it goes way beyond just job title and dates of employment.
It has to.
Yeah.
If you only list titles and dates, you're leaving, 50% of your value on the table. The framework asks you to inventory things like keywords from the TJD analysis, obviously, but also differentiators and strengths, education, certifications, and awards, community involvement and professional affiliations, publications, patents, presentations.
Let's pause on community involvement for a second. I feel like people often cut that because they think, oh, that's not work, or I'm applying for a serious corporate job. They don't care about the PTA. Why does the source include it as a must-have?
Because it often demonstrates leadership and soft skills that your day job might not. Let's say you're a junior accountant, but you serve as the treasurer for a large local nonprofit.
Okay.
That community involvement proves you can handle financial responsibility, board presentations, and strategic planning skills you might not get to use in your 9-to-5 yet. It's a way to prove potential.
That is a great point. It fills the gaps. Now, there is one category the source highlights specifically, the technology and skills inventory.
Yes. And there is a specific rule here. Technical literacy is mandatory across all professions, not just IT.
This is where I think some listeners might balk. They might say, but I'm a teacher, or I'm an HR, or I'm a nurse. I'm not a tech person.
But you are.
Yeah.
If you are a teacher, you are using learning management systems like Canvas or Blackboard. You're using Zoom or Google Classroom. If you're an HR, you're using Workday or Bamboo HR. If you're a nurse, you're using complex electronic health record systems like Epic. The source emphasizes that you must list these tools, platforms, and systems.
Why is it so critical to list the specific names of the software? Why can't I just say computer literate?
Computer literate is a phrase from 1995.
Okay, fair.
It means nothing today. It basically means you know how to turn the machine on. Listing specific tools does three things. First, ATS searchability. Employers often search for Salesforce or Excel pivot tables. Second, it shows adaptability. If I see you've learned 5 different software platforms, I know you can learn a 6th one.
That's a good point.
And third, it demonstrates employability. It shows you are ready to hit the ground running because you know the tools in the trade.
I want to ask about the danger of listing too much. Can you look desperate if you list literally every piece of software you've ever touched, like Microsoft Paint?
Yes, there is a line. The source emphasizes relevance. The TJD filter applies here too. If you are applying for a senior architect role, listing Microsoft's Word might look a bit junior, assumed.
Right.
But listing AutoCAD, Revit, and SketchUp is vital.
So list the tools that are distinct to the value you provide.
Correct, but err on the side of inclusion if you aren't sure, especially with modern SaaS software as a service tools. Knowing Slack or Asana or Trello seems basic to some, but to a company that lives and dies by those tools, seeing them on your resume means we don't have to train this person on how to communicate.
And that's a cost saving.
That's a cost saving, absolutely.
Right. Time to productivity. That's a metric hiring managers care about.
A huge metric. If I hire you today, how long until you are useful? If you know the tech stack, that time is cut in half.
That makes total sense. It's proof of competence. What about languages and global experience? The source mentions those too.
Huge data points. Even if the job isn't explicitly international, listing global experience or languages supports keyword density. It adds texture to your professional brand. It shows cultural competency, which is a highly valued soft skill in today's remote, globalized workforce.
Texture. I like that word for a resume. You don't want it to be flat.
Exactly. You want it to feel three-dimensional.
Okay, so we are building this massive inventory. We've got our tools, our awards, our languages. Now we come to section 4, the pivot. This is where the source says most people get stuck. The difference between duties and accomplishments.
This is the major conceptual shift.
Yeah.
This is the difference between a resume that gets tossed and one that gets an interview.
The source has this weak focus versus strong focus table. Let's run through that because I think hearing the difference is helpful.
Sure. Weak focus is duties. Strong focus is outcomes.
Okay.
Weak focus is activities. Strong focus is results.
Got it.
Weak focus is tasks. Strong focus is value delivered.
It's subtle but powerful. Duties sounds like a job description.
It is. A duty is what you were supposed to do. An accomplishment is what you actually did and how well you did it.
Can we give an example? Let's say a customer service rep.
Okay. A duty or weak focus would be answered customer phone calls and emails.
Okay.
Mm.
Accurate but boring.
Very boring. Anyone hired for that job would do that. Now, let's pivot to strong focus accomplishment. Something like resolved 50-plus customer inquiries daily with a 98% satisfaction rating, reducing escalation tickets by 15%.
Whoa. Okay. One sounds like a robot. The other sounds like a high performer.
Exactly. One describes the input, answering phones. The other describes the output, satisfaction reduced escalations.
And to make that shift, we need the right words. The source talks about action verbs.
Yes, and there's a reason career coaches harp on this. Structured lists of action verbs help you clarify the scope of your responsibility. They demonstrate authority.
So instead of responsible for, we're using words like orchestrated, developed, launched.
Negotiated, recovered, engineered. These words carry energy. They prevent the resume from reading like a passive list of things that happened to you. They show that you made things happen.
I feel like a lot of people struggle with this because they don't want to take credit for the team's work. They feel like they are bragging or lying if they say, I did this when it was a group effort.
That is a very common cultural hurdle.
Right.
But the resume is a marketing document for you, not the team. You could acknowledge the team context, led a team of 5, collaborated with engineering, but the verb must belong to you.
Okay.
If you say, we increased revenue, the recruiter doesn't know what you did. Did you just watch?
So own your slice of the pie.
Own it and
Yeah.
quantify it. If the project saved $1 million and you were one of 10 people, you can say, contributed to a $1 million cost-saving initiative by designing the front-end interface. You aren't claiming the whole million, but you are anchoring your work to that big number.
Anchoring. That's a good strategy. You get the reflected glory of the big number. And the source gets really specific about what things employers want you to make happen. It lists the value language. What are they actually looking for?
They are looking for evidence of 6 main things: revenue generated, costs reduced, processes improved, risks mitigated, customers saved, systems created.
I love that list. It's so clear. If your bullet point doesn't hit one of those 6 buckets, it might need a rewrite.
That's a great rule of thumb. If you're reading a bullet point and you can't categorize it into one of those 6, ask yourself, so what? Why does this matter?
Customers saved. That's a cool one. It sounds like a superhero stat.
It kind of is in business. Retention is huge.
Okay, so we know what to write about, accomplishments. Now let's talk about how to structure those sentences. Because nobody wants to read a paragraph. We need punchy bullet points. Section 5 introduces the formula.
The CAR framework.
CAR, what does it stand for?
Challenge, action, result. This is the antidote to boring bullet points.
Break it down for us.
Okay, so C is for challenge. What was the problem, the context, or the objective? You need to set the scene briefly.
Got it.
A is for action. What did you specifically do? Not the team, not the department, you. What skills did you apply?
Okay.
And R is for result. What was the measurable value to the organization? The happy ending.
So challenge, action, result. Let's try to build one on the fly. Let's go back to that teacher example since we mentioned them earlier.
Great. Okay, challenge. A teacher is facing a classroom where student reading levels have dropped post-pandemic. That's the challenge.
A very real challenge.
Very real. Action. Implemented a new phonics-based curriculum and integrated tablet-based reading software for personalized learning.
So that's what you did.
That's the action.
Yeah.
And the result. Increased class reading proficiency scores by 20% in one semester.
Boom. That is a story.
This is a micro story. And if you put that on a resume, it reads, increased reading proficiency scores by 20% by implementing new phonics curriculum and personalized tech tools to address post-pandemic learning gaps.
That is infinitely better than taught third grade reading.
Infinitely.
Let's do a different one. Maybe something in the trades or construction or logistics.
Sure. Let's do a logistics coordinator. Challenge. The company was facing a 20% increase in shipping costs due to supply chain disruptions.
Okay, another real world problem.
Exactly. Action. Analyze shipping routes, renegotiated contracts with 3 major carriers, and consolidated shipments for efficiency.
The 3-pronged attack.
Right. And the result. Reduce shipping costs by 12%. Save the company $50,000 annually while maintaining delivery times.
That is solid. And notice the numbers. 20% increase, the scary context. 12% reduction, the hero moment. $50,000, the ROI.
Exactly. Now compare that to a duty bullet point, responsible for overseeing shipping routes and carrier contracts.
It's night and day. One tells me you sat in a chair, the other tells me you saved my budget.
And here's why SAOR works so well. It mirrors behavioral interview techniques.
Oh, right. When they ask, tell me about a time you faced a difficult challenge.
Exactly. If you have written your resume using the CRR framework, your interview prep is 50% done. You already have the story structured in your head. Context, action, outcome.
That is such a time saver. You're engineering the resume and the interview simultaneously.
Yes. It converts your experience into what the source calls organizational value language. It shows you understand cause and effect in a business context. I saw a problem, I fixed it, here is the benefit.
I love that organizational value language. It makes you sound like a consultant for your own career.
Which is exactly what you should be.
Moving on to section 6. We've touched on this, but we need to go deeper because the source material is adamant about it. The proof, quantification, and ROI.
The source basically screams this: use numbers, use percentages.
Why are numbers so powerful?
Because hiring managers understand the language of ROI, return on investment. When they hire you, they are making an investment, they're paying a salary, they want to know what the return is. And numbers are the only way to prove scale and impact objectively.
So what exactly should we be measuring?
You can measure scale budgets managed, team size, number of locations. You can measure volume number of calls, number of reports, amount of revenue, or you can measure efficiency time saved, costs cut.
Okay, now I'm going to play devil's advocate here because this is the part where the listener who is maybe an administrative assistant or a graphic designer or a social worker starts to tune out. They say, I don't work in sales. I don't have a quota. I don't have numbers.
And that is the hopeful segment of our deep dive, because the source specifically addresses this.
Thank goodness.
Even for roles without obvious metrics like sales figures, value can be demonstrated. You just have to look for different indicators.
Like what?
Okay, problems prevented. How many times did you catch an error before it went to print? That saved money.
Sure.
Crises avoided. Did you de-escalate a situation with a client that could have led to a lawsuit? That's a massive value.
Yeah.
Process improvements. Did you create a filing system that saves the team 2 hours a week? 2 hours times 52 weeks is 104 hours a year. That's a number. Team enablement. Did you train 3 new hires? That's a number. Customer satisfaction. Did you get positive feedback emails? Count them.
Team enablement is a great one. If you are the person everyone comes to when the printer breaks or the software crashes, you are enabling the team to keep working.
Exactly. The source poses the ultimate guiding question for this scenario. How is the organization better because you were there?
That is a profound question. How is the organization better because you were there?
If the answer is it isn't, then you have a bigger problem. But for 99% of people, the answer is it is better. You just have to find the evidence. Maybe the office runs smoother. Maybe the patients are happier. Maybe the code is cleaner. All of that can be quantified or at least described as a specific result.
So digging for the silent victory.
Precisely. If you're a graphic designer, don't just say design brochures. Say created marketing materials that supported a campaign generating $50 in leads, or redesigned internal templates, reducing production time by 30%. There was always a number if you look for the impact, not just the task.
What about communication? Everyone writes excellent communication skills. It's practically invisible because everyone writes it. How do you engineer communication?
You prove it through the medium. Authored weekly internal newsletter read by 500+ employees, presented quarterly strategy updates to C-suite executives, reduced meeting times by 20% by implementing new asynchronous communication protocols.
See, those are facts. Excellent communication skills is an opinion.
Facts beat opinions every time. The resume questionnaire framework asks for publications, patents, presentations. This is why. If you have presented, list it. Keynote speaker at regional conference. That proves communication skills better than any adjective ever could.
Adjectives are the enemy.
Adjectives are suspicious. Verbs and nouns and numbers are trustworthy.
I like that rule. Adjectives are suspicious. I am a charismatic, hardworking, visionary leader, says who.
Exactly. Show me the vision. Show me the work.
Okay, we are coming into the home stretch here. Section 7. The so what. We've engineered this incredible document. It's got keywords, it's got numbers, it's got SOAR stories. But the source material suggests this process is bigger than just getting a job.
Yes, this is the strategic pivot. The source explains that this process acts as a strategic career reflection.
What does that mean?
It means that by doing this deep audit, by looking at your data, your gaps, your results, you are essentially looking in a mirror at your professional soul.
Deep.
It is. It helps you identify skill gaps. You might look at your TJD analysis and say, wow, every job I want requires Python and I don't have Python. Now you know what you need to learn. It's not a mystery anymore.
So it drives your professional development.
Exactly. It helps define your value proposition. And ultimately, it builds a long-term career strategy. You stop drifting from job to job and start navigating.
The source gives some specific examples of practical implications. Let's look at those to ground this.
Right. It connects this to high-level roles. If you are creating training programs, you should be documenting the number of teachers trained. If you are deploying software, document adoption metrics. If you are working globally, document multilingual deliverables.
And the expert insight here, which I think is fascinating, is that this type of documentation is exactly what executive and AI strategy roles expect.
Yes, think about it. We are moving into an era of AI and high-level strategy. These roles require people who understand systems, data, and outcomes. By engineering your resume this way, you are demonstrating that you think like a strategist. You think in terms of inputs and outputs.
Um,
You are proving you are ready for the future of work just by how you wrote your resume.
That is a cool connection. The way you apply for the job proves you are qualified for the job.
Exactly.
One final question on the engineering aspect. The source talks about garbage in, garbage out. Is there ever a case where you have too much good stuff?
Yes. That is the editing phase. And that is where TJD comes back in. If you have 10 amazing GAR stories, but only 3 are relevant to this specific job, you must be ruthless. You have to cut the other 7.
Kill your darlings.
Kill your darlings. But, and this is key, you don't delete them. You keep them in your comprehensive data gathering file. They might be perfect for the next application or for the second round interview.
So the master resume, or the inventory, is a living document that is 20 pages long, and the resume you send is the 2-page excerpt engineered for that specific moment.
Precisely. Never throw away data, just hide it until it's needed.
That makes the task of cutting so much easier. You aren't deleting your history, you're just archiving it.
Correct.
Okay, let's bring it all together in the outro. Recap the journey for us.
We started with the 50% rule. Preparation is half the battle. We moved to garbage in, garbage out. You need deep, comprehensive data gathering. Then we apply the filter of Target Job Deconstruction, or TJD.
And it's looking at everything through the employer's eyes.
Exactly. Then we built the inventory, the database of skills and tech.
Then we made the pivot from duties to accomplishments using action verbs.
And we structured those accomplishments using the KR framework, challenge, action, result, and proved them with quantification and ROI.
And finally, we realized this is all actually a strategic career audit in disguise.
That is the bottom line. A strong resume is not written, it is engineered. It is built from structured, relevant, quantified career data.
So if you are listening to this and feeling that dread of the blank page, stop trying to write.
Stop.
Start digging, start gathering data, start engineering.
And here's a final provocative thought to leave you with. If this process is actually a career audit, what does your current data say about where you should go next? When you look at your inventory, are you seeing a path you didn't expect? Are you just looking for a job, or are you designing a career path based on your proven value?
Ooh, that is a good one to chew on. Are you following the script or writing your own, or I guess engineering your
It's
own?
engineering your own.
Thank you so much for breaking this down with us. To our listeners, good luck with the engineering. Go find those gold nuggets in your history. We'll see you on the next deep dive.